Derek Doepker here with Mark Reclau, author of a fantastic book on habits. It's 30 Days, Change Your Habits, Change Your Life. And Mark and I were going to be talking about the impact that habits have on your life, why they're so important, as well as some practical tips and things like that for changing your habits. So welcome, Mark.
Hi, Derek. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time to do this. So you wrote your book, 30 Days. And before we get into that, can you please share a little bit about your backstory, where you were at before, and the impact that habits have had on your life?
Absolutely. Well, before I had a pretty normal life. I studied a career I didn't like to later work at a job that I hated for 11 years. And in September, at the end of September of 2013, I got fired. I got made redundant. That I was responsible of the German market of a book printer, and the market has been going down like already 2 years before, so it wasn't a surprise. I was prepared. I had done a life coaching training before already, so I said, okay, I knew I have 2 years because in Europe you get like jobless welfare for 2 years. I had lots of savings, which is also a small habit, the habit of saving 10% every month, which I started in 2006. And so I really could maintain my lifestyle for 2 years. So I thought I'm going to open a coaching practice and be a coach and have many clients. But well, sometimes you make plans and then life happens, right? So when I was jobless, I also always had the idea of writing a book. I was getting into self-publishing. You were one of the first authors that I was reading, and you were really inspiration for me. And I wrote 30 Days. And then, like for the most of us, in the first half year, nothing happened. But after half a year, when I was like ready to give up, thank God something inside me said, don't give up. Give it one more try. Give it one more try. Like Thomas Edison's great phrase, he says, the easiest way to succeed is just always try it one more time, right? And I was really clinging to that phrase. And then I got a BookBub deal. The authors among us know that BookBub, like a huge newsletter in the US, and it probably, if you get in there, it can make your career. And that's what happened. And that was my first breakthrough. But life always, as you know, goes up and down, up and down. So I was up, it went down again. But what I kept during those years, and it has been 7 years now, is my habits. I was really starting, and exactly like you will do it in your habits challenge, really small things, small steps. So sometimes, now I'm really living my dream life. I have 25 books on Amazon. I'm living practically off my books, which are most of my income. I just moved to another country, a small island in the Mediterranean, Malta it's called. It's so tiny you can't even find it nearly on the map. And so I was reflecting a lot what happened in the last 7 years, and it was exactly that. It was like really small habits, small changes, continuously practiced over time, over 7 years, and we know about this effect of multiplying, this exponential effect of what habits are doing for you. And that's how I got here. So when I heard about your habits challenge, it was, of course, clear for me that we talk about it, that I also promote it to people, because we are living proof of that this works,
Yeah, it's one of those things where the habits, especially if you're talking about small habits, they can seem insignificant if you're just looking at the behavior itself. And it's one of those mental little illusion type of things where you don't necessarily see the compounding effect day in, day out, month after month, year after year. And it's somewhat obvious maybe with exercise. I think most people realize you're not going to do one workout and then just be like super fit, or you're not going to, eat one piece of celery and then you're, super healthy or whatever. It's the daily little things. And that's the, Jim Rohn has a quote, I'm going to paraphrase off the top of my head, what's easy to do is also easy not to do. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things with the micro habits, the mini habits, is that it's super easy to do, but it's also easy to be like, well, this isn't that big of a deal. I can skip it. It's not doing that much for me, because you're not seeing that effect over time. So I'd love to discuss two things. One is, what some of the examples of those habits are. But before we get into that, just that idea of how you stay motivated and consistent when it comes to these tiny little habits that you have.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is also, when I think about it, it's not about motivation. I think that's the secret. You have to do these little habits also when you're not motivated. So we know it. If I would only write when I'm motivated or when I'm inspired, I wouldn't even have one book. That's just the thing. If I would go for long walks only when I'm motivated, it wouldn't happen. But the great thing about habits is you need a little bit of willpower at the beginning, but after a while, depending on the habit, of course, but in smaller habits, it's easier. After a while, it will get automatic. And that's what the great thing is. So then you don't even need motivation. Then it doesn't matter. For example, when I go for a walk, I don't care if it's hot, if it's cold, whatever, because it's not a question anymore. The question is to do my 10,000 or 15,000 steps. And that's how it gets. And also, I think you always keep motivated if you have a bigger goal behind it, be it more healthy, be it writing a book, be it living your dream life, right? So for me, it was really also, first of all, what you said, it was very important to believe in the plan, believe in the process, even if you don't see results. And there I was always looking to the example that you just said, the fitness example. I mean, it's like, that's the best example, because you need to train for 3-4 months probably to see some. I remember there was times when I was running 60 minutes in my lunch break, and for the first 2 months nothing happened, and I had my belly fat and everything, and then after month 3 suddenly it was melting away. So I always keep that in mind when I'm working, and when I don't see results. I trained my mind to just keep on going, believing that good things will happen. And then with time you get so confident because you see results. And the more results you see, the more you stick to it. So for me, normally now it's like unbelievable to stop certain habits where we can talk about it later, like gratitude, like writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. Impossible for me to stop that habit, because I've just seen what it has done for me in 7 years.
Yeah, a couple great points there. I think that's going to be the challenge for a lot of people. It certainly has been and continues to be for me at times if I don't remind myself of these ideas. And that is, well, I'm not seeing results. And that's the challenge, especially you get going and maybe you can use a little willpower. We can go to exercise and then maybe go to writing just to switch it up. Like, you might not see the results right away. And the results do make it fun. I remember when I started seeing my body change, and I was taking measurements, and I'm like, for me, it was wanting to put on muscle. So I'm like, oh, I'm changing. I'm seeing the result. And then it's like, okay, great. But what if you're not seeing those results and you're like, why would I keep doing this if I'm not seeing the results? And that's a tricky thing, because sometimes a person is just doing something ineffective and they might need to change their approach. But other times just keep going. Like you said, there's this trust in the process and trust the outcome. So how was it when you weren't seeing results, those first couple months? How did you maintain that trust to like, okay, I'm going to keep running. I'm going to keep going with this?
I think that you need a lot. You also need to reflect a lot, right? Because it's exactly what you said. If you're rowing in the wrong direction, all the rowing doesn't help. So it's like a continuous, testing yourself, checking yourself. Am I on the right way? Could I make something better? Or if I want to be healthier and I still drink 2 soft drinks a day, maybe I should leave the soft drinks away if I have done it for 3 months and I don't see the change, right? So sometimes we have to adopt our strategy, our tactics. But for me, of course, I also kept myself motivating with looking at other examples, with reading more about habits. Your book, Stephen Guys, James Clear, all those guys, everybody who writes about habit, E.J. Fogg, they say the same thing. So kind of you need to kind of also say, okay, if it worked for them, why shouldn't it work for me?
That's a great point. And this is one of the things that shifted my habits. And you're bringing this up, reminding me that when I first got into exercise, so the brief version of my backstory, in high school, I ate fast food every single night. I hated, I had to exercise for gym class, but once I was done with gym class, I wanted nothing to do with exercise. To me, it's like my belief was like exercise was a form of torture. Why would anyone do this to themselves willingly? So I'm like, unless I have a health condition that I need to do it, I keep any of that stuff away from me. And so I share that hopefully then that people can see not only have the habits changed, but my attitude has changed. And I hope that's inspiration for people that I actually love it and I crave it. And it's weird not to do it. It would be weird to go back to eating McDonald's every single night like I used to. That would be physically uncomfortable for me to do. So that's one thing. The other thing that I was going to point out is that I read a book and it was on the physiology of the body. It was called The Wrinkle Cure. And it just talked about what the effects of like junk food and stuff had on the body. And it just made it real to me. I could see the mechanism behind it. And so this could be a whole nother conversation. But the point is, by educating yourself, reading books, studying stories of other people, you start to go, oh, okay, I get this invisible process going on. I can't see what French fries are doing. I can eat them. I'm like, whatever, French fries, who cares? I don't get it. But I get the mechanism, the damaging mechanism. And now all of a sudden I go, ooh, I don't want to do that to myself. The flip side is you read, like you're talking about these books on habits, you read about the results that people have. And now all of a sudden I go, I see the mechanism for the positive. Right? So eating French fries one day or drinking water one day, you don't really know what it's doing to you. You probably won't feel that different, but through research and studying and reading stories, you start to actually understand and appreciate why one thing might actually be harmful and something else might be beneficial.
Awesome point, because the thing is, I'm lazy and I'm not very disciplined for exercise. So another thing is you adapt. And the same going back again. So I read that walking is also good, but you have to get 10,000, 15,000 steps in there. So I say, okay, I don't like to exercise a lot. All the diets and stuff and eating healthy didn't work, but I read up on intermittent fasting. So I combined that, walking and intermittent fasting. And then when I do it, it's fantastic. And it's perfect for me because I don't suffer because I'm just walking. I love walking. 15,000 steps is nothing. And then the intermittent fasting is nice because you don't eat for 16 hours and then in 8 hours, you can eat what you want. Anyway, you want to be healthy. So the fun thing about habits is also, once you get your body to do healthy things, suddenly, magically, it wants more. The same thing that happened to you with the French fries. So I now rather drink water than Coke. Or I eat a lot of salads, sometimes also meat, but my body now always, like also my brain says, well, what are the alternatives, right? Salad and maybe some chickpeas or whatever for proteins. And that's a great thing because that happens in the brain, and it's also decision making, right? Every now and then I was in the supermarket and I had the gummy bears in one hand and the celery in the other. And then my brain goes, what's your goal? What will bring you closer to your goal of living healthy? Okay, let's go with the celery, put back the gummy bears. And even if you start with very small habits, like for example, to have one piece of fruit more or having a banana instead of a chocolate bar, after a while, your body will ask more. Or even if you start walking 5 minutes, after a while, after a week, I bet your body already wants to walk 10 or 15 minutes. And like that, it goes on.
Yeah, so a couple really great points that you made there. One is, so on just what you're saying, these small habits build momentum. So there's a couple effects that it has. There's the momentum in the habit itself, like I'm going to walk for 1 minute a day or 5 minutes a day. Then you go, I naturally want to do 10 minutes and I want to do 20 minutes. So that's the habit building momentum. Then there's also like an outward ripple effect where going, okay, I'm drinking more water each day. Okay, well maybe now I changed my diet. Now I want to start exercising more. Now that I've started exercising more, I've gotten disciplined with that. Maybe you start to notice, I want to get more disciplined with my finances. It's now even jumping over to a different context.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of these keystone habits, these singular habits that you can change that create this domino effect. And that's why it's so important. What happens is a person looks at their life and maybe rightfully goes, there's all these things I want to change. But then they try to, juggle 20 different changes at once, and can't do all of it. It's overwhelming. Change is hard. It's stressful to the brain. So they don't do anything versus going, what's one change I can make? Get some mastery on that. But also, again, it's just trusting the process that if I just make this one change in this one area of life, it will get easier and easier to make these other changes, not just because it's becomes automated with the habit process, but because you have success and you change your identity. You go, man, I'm drinking water every day now instead of soft drinks. I feel good about that. What else can I do for my health? And that's a great thing. And you also, this beautiful question, what would bring me closer to my goal? And that idea of asking questions, not like, well, I shouldn't have the, gummy bears, or I should have this, and I got to give this thing up. And I like this kind of forceful thing. I say it's more like an invitation or a question of like, you can choose either one, but which one's going to bring you closer to a goal? And then you're allowing yourself to choose the one that's going to be the better fit.
Exactly.
So on this point, we talked about the idea of some of these small habits that build up. What are some of your top or most powerful, a few of them? I mean, I'm sure there's many, but a few of your most powerful mini habits that you practice.
I mean, mine are not mini habits anymore because I did the mini habits many years ago. So for me, the habits now is really, it's like walking every day, like 12,000 steps. And I already noticed that I want to make 15,000. So I started with 8, then it went to 10. And what I do every day, and that's kind of a mini habit because it's not a lot of time, is writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. I think that's one of the most impactful and easiest habits, but it can really make a huge difference. In my life, I noticed that the more grateful I became, the more successful, the happier I became. So I will not miss that. And it's just writing down 3 things that you are grateful for. For example, for today, I'm grateful for our talk. It's been a long time that we talked. I'm grateful for my laptop, for my computer, because I mean, you are in California, I'm in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and still we can communicate like you would be in the other room. And all these things are also a cup of coffee in a nice bar, something like this. All these little things, again, it's little things, and it also builds up. It builds up, and is it's scientifically proven that it has benefits for your well-being. You become more optimist. You see more opportunities. For entrepreneurs, for example, it's very important to see opportunities. You see more and more, so you're gonna take every now and then on, less prone to depression, sleep better, less headaches. So if we could have a pill that has all these benefits, we would run to the pharmacy right now to get it, and we just need to write 3 things that we are grateful for. What is important? Feel the gratitude. What I noticed, so I write it down and I feel gratitude with my whole body practically. I even get goosebumps. And I think that strengthens the whole effect. And it's really simple and it's easy to start. And you might see, if you do it right, you might see actually results already after 2, 3, 4 weeks. I had people that were really at low points and they told me after 3 weeks, I got a mail or something that said, Mark, not really anything has changed. I don't know if I'm getting crazy, but I'm a lot more optimistic and happier right now. And I told them, yeah, that's exactly what I expected. And then they build on that, because when we know how our attitude influences our life, right? And if we go into our days with a positive, optimistic attitude, things start to happen. So it's a great habit. And when I write, a good habit is also to do, so the most difficult things I do in the morning. Everything that needs to be done, I have to do it between 6 and 9 a.m. How do I know? Because I tried many times to do it later and it never worked out. So I'm just see it now. That was also a process, because all this way of mini habits and the process, it's also a process of of knowing yourself. So, and it's okay, we all have our flaws and everything. We have to accept them, and I accept them and I say, okay, I accept it. If I want to get it done, it has to be done between 6 or 9 a.m. or it probably won't get done based on experience. So this is a habit that helped me a lot in writing books or whatever. I mean, I cannot imagine writing after 10. It happened very, very seldomly. I write between 6 and 9.
Perfect. So you mentioned the habit of gratitude. And I love this because it's something, I just got this idea of an upstream habit. And I don't know if that terminology has been used before, but that's what came to mind, because it's one of these things where, like, for instance, I saw some people who are like, well, it's more kind of breaking a habit. I worry a lot. I'm stressed out. I lose my temper. I that. And it's like, okay, trying to stop a habit, that's a whole different discussion. But I'm often thinking, what can you do? What kind of habit could you kind of get to more a root issue so that those kind of things are less likely to manifest? Not to say that just writing 3 things you're grateful for means you'll never get stressed out ever again. It's not that. But it will mitigate, especially if it's done earlier in the day, or even, morning and night, or just even, right after you get up or right before you go to sleep, when you're kind of in that, that particular state where you're more kind of open to suggestion. It's like, what am I most grateful for? And you feel it. And now all of a sudden that can set a tone for your entire day, where everything else shifts as a result of that, downstream from that one simple habit that you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, gratitude is an antidote to anger, envy, worrying, to all these, let's say, painful emotions, because you can't be worried and grateful at the same time. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. You can't be sad and grateful at the same time. Of course, there are times where you need to be sad, where you need to be angry, because we don't want to suppress our emotions. That would be worse. But the thing is, you have a solution. So when I get sad every now and then I ask myself, why? What happened? What triggered me? And then I know I can now be sad the whole day, but I can also be grateful for something. Gratitude can bring me out of that sadness. And then sometimes I say, no, I don't want to be grateful. I want to be sad. And then I know another thing. I say, I know I can walk for 30 minutes, because then in my brain, the endorphins will shoot and everything. And I will also get rid of this sadness, or I just need to be sad. But the great thing is, so with gratitude, you have an option, and then you decide. But it's not say when you are angry, oh, I'm happy. No, when you are angry, you are angry. But when you shift to gratitude and see, what can I be grateful, a part of this big thing, what makes me angry now? What can I be grateful for? If you manage to shift, the anger goes down. It's an awesome antidote. And I mean, for me personally, I think I have become a much more calmer person, better in dealing with my emotions. And when I get sad or angry or envious, it is more or less, I don't feel like a victim of these emotions. I rather feel I want to explore where do they come from? Why is it happening now? Why do I feel this emotion? Because when I ask myself that, then I can also maybe find the solution. And gratitude just helped a whole lot with that.
Yeah, you bring up a couple great points. One is that what I'm hearing from what you just said there, and it's been my experience, that all of these emotions can be messengers. If I'm angry, okay, there's something to learn there. My boundaries were violated on some level, that anger, my expectations were, broken. And so, and there's a healthy place for all of these different emotions to express themselves. And what I used to do in the past was like, well, no, I should be happy and grateful instead, rather than being like, it's okay to have these things. And okay, I can still be angry if I want. What if I just took a minute though to be grateful as well? I can go back to being angry, but what if I also consider, considering 3 things that I'm grateful for, and it kind of like balances it out. And then, like you're saying, you can go back with this thing that I was angry about, or that you're angry about, and see it like, okay, I still don't like that happened, but I have a little bit of a different perspective on it now. I can maybe think through it a little bit better. I can be maybe more compassionate about the other person, or see a solution to something where maybe I didn't see it before. And it brings in this harmony and this balance whenever you bring
Absolutely. Or you can decide not to and be angry at the other person, but at least you had this space, you had this little space of gratitude where when you respond and not react, because many times it's reaction. It's like you get triggered and then you react. And then or sometimes you get triggered, you take conscience, you get aware of it, maybe go to gratitude, and then you respond. It's a much more powerful way in communication. You can still choose. Yep. Maybe you need to be angry. As you said, if somebody crossed your boundaries, but maybe you decide not to. Because, gratitude with this COVID crisis now we had, I think everybody should come out of it a little bit more grateful, because especially in Spain where I lived before, they took everything from us. We couldn't even go for a walk. I couldn't see my girlfriend for 10 weeks, she was living 15 miles away. It was forbidden. So afterwards, I got even more grateful that I was already. And it's great not to take things for granted. It levels up your happiness.
Yeah, I love it. You have choice, like you're saying. It's not just I default react. Like I'm triggered now. I only have one response. It's I can choose how I respond to this. I can choose take a more empowered approach and feel whatever I'm feeling, and that's okay. And have the knowledge that you can. I want to get this idea of like you can shift your state. And that is a powerful thing. It doesn't mean you always have to force yourself to be in a different state. Just the fact that you have the ability, like you're saying, I can choose to feel goosebumps and bring tears to my eye if I sit here and I think about all the things that I'm fortunate to have in my life, right? Like that's within my conscious control. That's within your conscious control. You consider, what am I grateful for? And you get in touch with it and you can feel it. And I remember for so much of my life, I thought, you can't help your feelings. Your feelings just arise. It's just, someone pushes a button, something feels. And that might happen, but it's also like you can push your own buttons and go, what am I grateful for? If I'm walking, this is my thing. I'm walking behind people who are really slow and I get frustrated because I'm a fast walker. I want to get there, get where I'm going. But then, if I just stop and I go, wow, I have legs. I can walk. Like what if this is a reminder that, I want to walk fast. Wait a second. I can walk, period. Not everyone has that. And then it can become like, it's an activation, that thing that used to kind of like make me mad. And sometimes it still does. But now it's like, I can choose sometimes to catch myself in that moment and flip it to going, what is this reminding me to be grateful of?
Awesome. Yeah. I'm going through the world like this. When I see people that are on crutches or something, I'm absolutely automatically, I say like, thank you to the universe, to destiny, to God, to whatever. But it's like, it makes me feel grateful because it's really, we need these reminders.
Yeah. So as we begin to, we'll start to wrap it up. Any other best practices or tips for someone who wants to form habits and maybe they're struggling to be consistent with them? So we could talk about, we could go more in the mini habits approach or something about reminders or rewards or anything that you feel like would be helpful.
For me, I do it with habit trackers. So I have like, I'm all old school. I mean, this is my schedule, but the habit tracker would look the same. I would put the habits there, and then I would make a cross. When I did the habit, I would probably maybe, if it's mini habit, I mean, I put 7 or 8 habits there, but when I started, I put 1 or 2. And then you make a cross when you do, I made it green when I did the habit and red when I didn't do the habit. And it's also very good because if you look at it in a month with 30 days, because many people also like they do a habit 2, 3, 4 times and they fail once and then they're like, oh God, now it's done. Now I wait until Derek does the next challenge, or I wait until New Year, next year, January, to start again. And I was like, come on. I mean, so it's green, 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 green. Then there's 1 red, but then I can put another green there and then maybe, so even if you do a habit only 5 times a week, at the end of the month, you will have done at least, or in 4 weeks, you do something 20 times. 20 times is a lot more than 4. It's not 28, it's not 30, but 20 is good. In a year, you have done it probably 300 times. I mean, pure logic, it has to do, in fact, if it's drinking a glass of water, if it's walking 5 minutes, if it's writing down your gratitude, still in a year, and that's why I always I suggest to really do this as a long-term thing. Miracles are not made quickly, at least I haven't seen them so often. And for me, it's more really that consistency of doing things constantly, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years. But if you look at the habit like this and say, okay, I've done it 5 times, not 7, 5, but it's good, and build on that. And every time during this time, I will really bet on it that every time there will be less red and more green, because you will do it more and more and more. I think the most important thing is not to give up when you fail once. Many people give up when they fail once. I think that's it's not logical.
Yeah, and so I'm so glad you brought that up, because you bring in the visual component. There's several reasons why this works psychologically. One is the visual aspect, and most people are actually, we use more visual processing as humans more than anything else. Now, some people are more auditory or kinesthetic, but still the visual image. I've also heard this about, for some people, not erasing things off your to-do list or scratching it out, but there's like a Kanban system where you actually move it to a completed column. Like if you add post-it notes and you move to a completed, and the reason psychologically is you see, oh, look at all these things I've gotten done this week, right? You see all the wins, and especially if you feel like, man, I don't know. I've certainly had this, like, I don't know what all did I even accomplish anything today? And I have to like look back and remember, oh yeah, I got this done and that done and this other thing done. And so you can visually see all the successes that you've had. And then you bring up another great point. You'll see like, you'll see green, 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 red. Okay, but I still got more greens. I want to get back on the green. How quickly can I get another green in there, right? And get right back. And so you get this visual representation of it that reminds you of the, like, how can I get the most greens? It's okay if I have a few reds this month, but how can I get the most greens? And then it's just about getting back on track quickly. It's not about being perfect. So many good things there. And another thing.
Sorry for interrupting you. I had that also for my goals. So I made like the same habit tracker for goals, like work on web page, do this, do that. And it was amazing. I did that in my conferences because mostly it was red. Okay, so that was not habit, that was goals. So like post once a day on social media, write 1 newsletter per week. So when I wrote 1 newsletter, the whole week went green, right? And then I showed people the paper. It was a paper like this, and it was really mostly red. And they couldn't believe it. I said, look, it was actually a great month. I got a lot of stuff done, even if it looks so overwhelmingly red, because sometimes it's just important things have to be green. You know, it doesn't, when you do it with goals, it doesn't have to be green all the time, but you have to get the important things done. So that helped me also a lot. And for people who were like starting, I noticed that's what the feedback I got. It was very comforting to see like a paper that is like 80% red, and the guy says, it was a great month. I reached nearly all of my goals. So
yeah, and that's the power of prioritization. There's no way you're going to get done all the things that you could do. So the question is, what are the most important things? And if you look at it from an 80-20 perspective, 20% driving 80% of your results, it would make sense that of all the things that you could do, maybe you only need to do really 20% of them, or prioritize the top 20%. And that's okay. And then the next month you go, what's the next most important 20%? So it's really good. And then also the power of putting things onto a sheet, onto a tracker. This is once you start to get multiple habits, multiple goals, multiple things. What another way the brain works is it helps to think of one core thing that you're doing, right? So this idea of habit stacking, Steve Scott talks about that. I was talking to Hal Elrod, and he's got his Miracle Morning process. Miracle Morning is silence, which is like meditation, affirmations, visualizations, SAVE, exercise, R, reading, S, scribing, like journaling. He's taken like six different habits, right? And you might think, oh, 6 new things I got to add to my life. No, it's one thing called the Savers. I don't know if it's method or whatever. It's a singular morning routine. You can put it all onto like one sheet of paper. And that's the answer to, once you start getting multiple things in, you combine it into chunks, right? And it's also like remembering phone numbers, right? You remember, chunks, bop, 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 like 3 numbers, and your brain can chunk things and remember and handle that better when you take multiple things but put it into a singular routine, or in this case, a singular paper tracking mechanism.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Mark, I want to thank you so much. Speaking of gratitude, I'm very grateful for all that you've done, being a role model of living the habit practices that you teach, and for coming here and sharing your wisdom with us. Where can people learn more about you and your books?
Oh, I'm everywhere. There's only 2 Mark Reclaus in the world, and I totally kicked the other one out of Google, the poor guy. So Mark with a C, Reclau, R-E-K-L-A-U, and I'm everywhere. Also on Amazon, I think if you put in Mark Reclau, my books come up. My webpage is also markreclau.com. I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even on Twitter, although I don't get Twitter, but if you, on any social media, you tag me and I'll respond.
Perfect. So I'll include a link here, and then I'll recommend you have a number of good books. One specifically tying into habits is 30 Days, Change Your Habits, Change Your Life, as we mentioned. And I highly encourage you to check that book out, as well as Mark's other books. So thank you again, Mark. Any final words?
Thanks. It's just always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm very grateful, and it's so great because you were one of the, let's say, how do you say, the guiding lights for me when I started. And it's great we sit here together now 7 years later and chat, and my door is for you always open. That's not a problem. You don't even have to ask. You have to just tell me, Mark, I'm doing this and this, and I'll support you in any way I can, because that's all. Again, I'm grateful, Derek, because I needed, when I was there, where many of the people who start with a challenge or get into a habit today, when I was there, I had you to look up to. And so I told you many times, you also have added your grain of sand to my success. And so always grateful.